Hello, and welcome to a very special edition of the Advent IM podcast, Risk and Business. Because this year, Advent officially turned 20 years old. And to celebrate, I'm joined by my business partner and friend, and usually the person who does her best to keep me out of trouble, Julia McCarron.
Hello, I do my best. I don't always succeed, but I do my best.
So here we are, 20 years.
I know, I can't believe it really.
Because for some reason we thought that Christmas was the right time to give up well-paid jobs and start a new company.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
In the middle of a recession.
Yeah, in the middle of a recession as well.
And now we've gone through 2 recessions, a pandemic, and heaven knows what.
It's to come, yeah, who knows. But we're still here. And it's been an interesting 20 years really, all told. Lots of things going on. If you look back at 20 years, what was the industry like then? It was predominantly just software, hardware and appliances, wasn't it? There was very little to the industry at that point.
Everything was flashing lights and gizmos. There was no real understanding of the sort of stuff that I would like to say that we've transformed the thinking around the fact that the people at the heart of security, people, process, information. Then you get your technology, your hardware, your software, and wrap around that your layers of physical security. But if you don't get those fundamentals right, the information management stuff right, then the rest of it just seems to fall in a heap anyway, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it wasn't really information people. They didn't really factor into anything, did they, 20 years ago? It was, we'd barely had the internet at that point. People didn't understand data. They didn't understand, therefore, how to secure that data. So they kind of thought they'd got somewhere with the flashing lights, the software, the appliances, but that really was only half the story. And it was only really when BS 7799 reared its head that we started to actually think about information and protecting that information, wasn't it?
Do you know what? Yeah, I'm just thinking back now. We didn't even have Facebook.
No.
I think we might have had MySpace.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Maybe. MySpace, yeah. But yeah. Facebook still hadn't come along. In fact, if you remember, we were just starting, before we set up Advent, on a technological level, experimenting with the idea of VPNs and running VPNs over ISDN lines. We were basically doing VPN over phone lines.
We didn't even have email marketing, really. We were still doing postal mail merges.
Some would say we still don't.
Oh, don't tell Ellie that. But it was really the start of the change, I think, and the move towards actually thinking about information and information as an asset.
It's the start of joining everything up technologically, wasn't it? But we were still a light year away from joining it up informationally.
Yeah, and I think you really saw the hole in the market at the time, and obviously our boss then wasn't really interested in going down a consultancy route. And that's kind of why we ended up starting Advent.
So, I mean, prior to Advent, as many people who were in our industry did, had come up largely through an IT route. And, as you know, I'd been over in the Isle of Man for a few years working in offshore finance, and I single-handedly saved the world from the Y2K bug, in fact.
No, I think you'll find I helped with that through my work at AAH Meditel at the time.
You were working for a medical company?
I was.
And they didn't suffer from Y2K either?
No, because I single-handedly stopped them from suffering from Y2K.
And how did you do that?
Strangely enough, with a mail merge.
I've heard all sorts now. I didn't come from an IT background originally, of course. I'd spent 10 years in the military, in the medical corps. Although I actually joined the army because I wanted to work in IT and my parents wouldn't let me. And now, years later, having exited the military, I found that I didn't actually want to work in IT at all because the information world was far more fascinating than the technology. So all routes, Securitas, here the way we find ourselves, where we find ourselves.
Yeah.
But certainly 20 years has gone by for me in the blink of an eye at times. It seemed a very long time at times, and yet at the same time, when we started prepping for our 20th birthday at the start of last year, I just couldn't believe it was 20 years gone already.
Yeah. Well, my background obviously wasn't IT or information security, but marketing, and I used to work for a brewer, which was probably the ideal industry for me. Shame I left it, really, but there we are.
Could you organise
I certainly could.
Right,
yes.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, so I started off in the brewing industry, and then I moved into motor factoring and selling spark plugs and wiper blades, and then I found myself in the IT industry, but via a medical company, and before that via another sort of infrastructure company as well. So I was marketing IT. And that's kind of how I fell into it. And of course, then how we met, mutually working for the same organisation, selling antivirus and firewalls and IDS systems and all of that.
Yeah, so, a company that would give me away for free in order to make £30 on a firewall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hence why
and that
we are
really,
where we are.
yes, and that really was what started to drive our thinking around Advent, wasn't it? That there had to be a better way of doing it. And it wasn't about going into a company and trying to just sell more and more and more software and hardware. It's actually helping an organisation to get an end result that helped the organisation to be more effective, more secure, but also delivered end user needs as well. And we'd already seen 20 years ago that the technology was starting to become the restrictor, not the enabler, because everything was getting locked down and more users were getting frustrated because the security was getting in the way of them doing their jobs.
Yeah.
And that was, over a couple of glasses of wine in the back of a fag packet where the whole business model for Advent came from.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. It was definitely, there was a change coming. Obviously, as I said earlier, BS 7799 had just come out. The government weren't mandating it, but were recommending that government followed the guidelines in it. So it was kind of an opportunity for us there to, I guess, practice what we wanted to, or preach what we wanted to practice, I should say. So it seemed logical for us to sort of step into that arena when our boss wasn't interested in taking it forward. But we had no idea whether it would work. I remember sitting in a car, bus driving somewhere, going, what are we going to call this company then? And just because it was Advent, as in Advent calendar time, I went, let's call it Advent.
And of course, Advent also means a fresh start or a new start. So for several reasons, it seemed to fit.
And we were keen, we didn't want it to sound like a firm of accountants with Gillespie and Co. and whatever, so we wanted it to sound
Actually, I think that's got a nice sound to it,
Do you?
Gillespie and Co.
I thought McCarron and Gillespie would have sounded better myself, but Advent we settled on.
This is why the Beatles split up, So, 20 years. So we've seen governments come and go.
Yes.
Most of those technology companies that were around when we set Advent up have gone or been merged and subsumed.
Definitely
Most
merged.
of the names don't exist anymore, and we're still here. And not only still here, but we've gone from 2 people in a one-man office with a laptop between us.
Well, actually a back bedroom to start with.
That's true. To where we are now, which is an internationally recognised organisation with customers in all sorts of sectors. And we still have our very first customer as our customer today. Not bad going for 2 people who didn't know how to run a business.
No, not sure we still do, to be honest, but we must be doing something right.
So where do we go from here then?
Onwards and upwards, I think. We have been through some very challenging times. Recessions have been very hard.
Financial crisis.
Yeah.
Coalition government.
And it's very difficult when you're a small organisation because just one thing hits you really, really hard. You can lose a client when you're a big conglomerate and not even notice it. But for somebody like us, if we're in a situation where organisations are financially constrained and they can't spend the money they used to spend, and they turn around to us and say, sorry, we can't carry on with this contract, that's a big thing for a small company. And we had that happen to us during the financial peaks and troughs, and it had hard impacts on us financially, and we had to make some difficult decisions. And we've never had to actually lose staff as such, but it's been quite difficult to manage the situation at times. And then obviously we've got through those periods and then continue to build and grow. Then usually to get yet another recession hit us. So we've certainly driven the roller coaster, I'd say, with this business.
Well, we've seen them all, haven't we? We've seen war, famine, pestilence.
Yeah.
And I think that's there's not many more things that we can face going forward that we haven't already faced in the past.
No, but I think it does make you stronger. you learn from these things, you strengthen as a result of it. So we've been through, obviously, as a nation, hard times in the last 2 to 3 years with the pandemic. We had absolutely no idea how that was going to pan out, and I'll be honest with you, when that hit, I thought, my God, we're going to be closing the doors. Something's got us at last, We've got through all of these hard challenges before, and now this one's going to be the one. But in fact, it had the exact opposite effect. Launched us into a year we could never have expected financially, and thankfully the last couple of years we've had some fantastic results and making profit that we're able to plough back into the business. And that's kind of where I see us going, really, in the future. We have our 7-year plan still to fulfil. We're 5 years in, or on to year 5 of that 7-year plan now, and to continue to invest in the business and seek new areas to sell our services into. Improve the services we've got, make them more agile. Having the move to remote teams and that kind of technology is certainly helping, I think.
I think the development of things like virtual training and the uptake we've had on that, certainly some of the courses I've done over the last 18 months, we've had delegates from everywhere, from the Outer Hebrides to Jersey, which opened up a whole new market for us. So there's always opportunities in adversity, isn't there? You just have to take them. Yeah,
and I think you do. I think that's key. You have to take every opportunity as it comes.
And of course, we've got trees.
Trees?
Trees.
As in palm trees?
No, I think they're fir trees, actually, but, same sort of thing. Green, tall, take a while to grow. No, but, we one of the things that we did as part of our birthday celebration was we sent out to people past and present who have been part of the Advent journey, past employees, business partners, and of course to our current staff. We sent them all a tree to plant. We've got the time as a company to sit back and watch those trees grow in the same way that Advent will continue to grow.
Yeah, very much so.
So, if you're one of those people that received your tree, make sure you keep sending us photos so we can see that you're looking after them properly.
Yeah, keep watering them.
So, 20 years gone and 20 years to come.
Oh, God. Maybe not 20. I'm not sure I could cope with another 20 years.
Well, one of the great things that we've done, actually, that's I think something I'm very proud of, is the way that we've developed that senior leadership team, and now we've got the aspiring leaders coming up behind the senior leadership team. So we've actually got 3 layers of future growth that we're developing, where in the future, we're all of a certain age, shall we say. There is on the horizon, retirement beckoning, but that doesn't need to be the end for Advent anymore. And that's a great thing to look forward to as well.
Yeah.
That as a legacy, we can walk away from Advent, but Advent won't be walking away from the industry.
Yeah, and that would be a great way to end our journey, I think.
Absolutely.
But we've not ended it yet. Only on 20 years. Let's see what we're saying in 25 years. Or at the 25 year, I should say, rather than in 25 years.
I think most people have a really big party at the 21st, don't they? So, just saying.
Maybe. We'll see.
Well, there you are. Just our little musings about the 20 years that we've spent since Advent was a tiny little start-up in a back bedroom with a laptop to where we are today. Hope you've enjoyed listening to this. As always, get in touch. Tell us things you want to hear from us. Tell us what you think about our podcast. And if there are any topics that you think we should be covering and we haven't covered, then let us know that as well. This has been the Advent IM podcast, Risk and Business.